Hey, greetings. Today I'm just going to look at Spirituality 101. First step, faith in God. And now I believe that you no longer have to believe in God. I think there's evidence to show that you no longer actually have to believe in God. There's evidence that there is a God. And this evidence is basic biological science. It won't tell you who or what God is. God could be nasty. I don't know. But I do know that there is a creator. And I've written about that. So at this point, I'm going to read what I've written about that. And so here goes. Is life designed? What does molecular biology tell us about the possibility of life being designed? The simplest form of life turns out to be a very complex little organism. The most basic living, reproducing cell has many incredibly sophisticated elements that need to act in unison for it to function and reproduce. It contains molecular machines like motors, pumps, tubes, shears and rotors. The famous physicist Paul Davies states that the cell is a vast web of information management. Now, I'm going to take just one of these incredible, elaborate elements to look at whether it is possible for living cells to form from chemicals without any intelligent input. Now, proteins are the building blocks of life, and every cell needs proteins, or lots of them. Hundreds to thousands of different types for each cell. These proteins are very complex molecules and don't just magically appear. Each protein is made up of a sequence of many amino acids that are folded in a specific way for them to be functional. Now here's a clanger. Each protein has a specific code for making it. The code for each protein is found in DNA. It's a genetic code. Bill Gates states, DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. But protein coding DNA cannot and do not make anything. They just contain a code for a specific protein to be made. The most basic of living bacteria, the first life formed, must translate this code and make the protein of that certain DNA code. Now, there are hundreds of different proteins in the most basic of cells, and therefore hundreds of different codes. And here is a brief overview of how that code is turned into a protein. The code in the DNA is transcribed to a messenger RNA. This is a very complex process, needing other proteins to attach the RNA to the DNA. And then the DNA opens up and to the DNA, and then open the DNA double helix so that the code can be copied. This copy of the code is then taken to a protein making factory located in the cell. This place, called a ribosome, can actually translate the coded message on the RNA. Through other mechanisms, the cell brings the required amino acids, which, by the way, are actually quite complex molecules in themselves, so they don't just they're not just naturally floating around in the prebiotic universe. So it brings the required amino acids that are coded on the RNA and put together a very complex protein. The amino acids must be brought into the cell or made on site. The details of this process is way more complicated than my short summary. Remember, this is just for one protein, and there are hundreds of different proteins in the most basic cell, and the cell needs many of each. It needs to be constantly making them. However, there is an even bigger conundrum. To transcribe and translate this coded information found in the DNA, into a functioning protein, proteins are actually needed. So to make a protein, you need proteins. So try to imagine the first time this ever happened. You've got, it's mind-boggling. Again, these proteins do not appear magically. They are produced via this same process. Without these proteins present in an incredibly complex cell, proteins could not be produced. This sounds simple, but it wipes out any possibility that protein could form from random processes, because even if by some incredible miracle a DNA molecule just happened to arrange itself with coded information that could be transcribed and translated to produce a functioning protein, nothing would happen. There's no protein around to transcribe this information. What to speak of a complex unit that makes protein from amino acids, that is the ribosome, the DNA would just break down. I'll also note that ribosomes are made of protein. So we have the same impossibility. The machinery that makes protein is actually made of protein. It is impossible for the ribosome to exist without itself. Scientists have spent millions of paid hours for over 100 years in their laboratories trying to show that this could happen by chance. No one has come up with a plausible theory today. On the other side, scientists and mathematicians have calculated the probability of this happening and have come up with numbers that show it is impossible. See Stephen Meyer, Signature in the Cell. So I'd recommend that book to anyone. It's called Signature in the Cell by Stephen Meyer. He's a doctorate in... he's got a doctorate in the philosophy of science. Looks at this and all the proposed theories that the scientists have of how life could form, and they're not plausible, and he shows that. Paul Davies, in his book, The Demon in the Machine, acknowledges that chemistry alone cannot explain the origin of life. Quote, "Chemistry alone, however complex, can never produce the genetic code or contextual instructions. Asking chemistry to explain coded information is like expecting computer hardware to write its own software." That's Paul Davies, and he's very famous scientist. So there's no way known that a cell could form from chemicals. However, we know from experience that there is only one way that codes are made and translated. They need to be designed by an intelligent mind. A system of production also is only known to be engineered by an intelligent mind. If you look at all the possible causes for this incredible complex translation and protein building machinery, there is only one cause that we have any experience of that can do this. Sorry, I'm just turning the page. Nearly finished. Nearly done. So yes, the only cause we know that can produce codes and what to speak of processes to produce proteins, design, manufacturing processes, is intelligent design. Intelligence. This is good science and reasoning. We use this reasoning in other areas of science to show that intelligent beings have been involved in producing or doing something that occurred in the past. For example, if someone discovers a rock with what is obviously an inscription on it, for example, the Rosetta Stone, then we know that this has been done by humans. We don't say it was just happened by chance. Forensic science is used if we come across a dead person and they have injuries consistent with force used by another human. We don't say their death was an accident. We say it was murder and look for a perpetrator, even though we may have no idea who the perpetrator was. I think it's also, this is not what I've written down. Yeah, so it is the same thing. If you find a dead body with injuries on it, it's an event that happened in the past. No one was there to see it. And humans have to use science, logic, and reason to work out. The first thing they have to work out is, was that death caused by an intelligent agent, a human, or did it happen by accident, natural causes? And we can do this. Basic. If we can do it for that, we can do it for, yes, the origin of life. Science is also using this reasoning to try to find extraterrestrial life. The SETI, which stands for, that's SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program, presupposes that any specified information, brackets, information that is specifically arranged to form a function, and the brackets, embedded in electromagnetic signals coming from space, would indicate an intelligent source. So yes, specified information, that is, information that is specifically arranged to form a function, which is exactly what DNA is. It's information, coded information about a protein, which is there and it has a function. That coded information in the DNA gets transcribed into a living, real protein. Well, not a living protein, but a real protein, which is inside a living organism that maintains it. So in answer to the title of this piece, Is Life Designed? Yes, the impossible can't happen. It doesn't matter how much time you give it. The debate should be over. The science is in. It is not possible for the simplest living cell to form by accident. Now, this summary is light on in detail, and if you want to know more, I suggest that you do read Stephen Meyer's Signature in the Cell. Now, science cannot tell us who God is, but it can definitely tell us that there is God. We know enough about matter not to be materialists. So, that's it. That's 101. Step 1, spiritual life. Is there a God? Yes. Make of that what you will. I'm suggesting you make of that. I'm suggesting once you know that, then faith, the next step is faith. And who are you going to have faith in? And you're going to have faith in a spiritual teacher, spiritual authorities, God within and without. Because it's not. Just to believe in God, it's not a big deal. Billions of people have believed in God. In fact, in the Bible, St. Peter says that to some person. So you believe in God? Big deal. Even Satan believes in God. So you can believe in God and be opposed to God. So I'm not suggesting that. Anyway, thanks for listening.